Recording. Okay. So I have the great pleasure today to introduce to you our speakers, which are Nia and Kuata Vainikolo. Nia comes from, she was born on the island of Hawaii, and Kuata is from district Maufanga from Tonga. And they're both here in East Palo Alto. They're both the directors of Kuata's Performing Arts, and I am one of Kuata's students, so I'm very honored to have them here and helping us to understand and learn the Tongan culture and language and history as we continue our Tonga Day event series under the ASSC and Skyline College. So thank you very much for being here today. Give it up, everybody. All right. Before anything, we're gonna have our special performance, which is a special exclusive video that the group Kuata's Performing Arts went ahead and did just for today. All right, that was beautiful. Thank you so much for recording that for us, and thank you to the kids, the performers, for also being willing to be in the video. So then, without further ado, then we're gonna go ahead and get started into the main presentation, which is actually going to be given by Nia and Kuata themselves. If you have any questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat. We'll be sure to make sure and answer those when it's time for the questions. And other than that, just sit back and enjoy. Thank you.
Here's a couple people in this room.
Hello, everyone. Malolele. Thank you, Skyline and Ryan, for having us here. We're going to talk to you today about the costume of the faiva whakatonga. Before we do so, we're going to just explain a brief overview of the faiva and the meaning behind it. So we'll start with the Lakalaka. So the word Lakalaka refers to the leg movements, basically a walk that moves one step to the left, then one step to the right, and then occasionally forward and back. The influential Lakalaka traditions derive from Punake Kuata Vainikolo, who's from the village of Tonga. It is from this village and Punake that the Lakalaka originated in collaboration with its chief, Tuku'aho. So this picture here, you'll see the Lakalaka before, and the Lakalaka in modern day. As you can see in the costumes, pretty much nothing has really much changed within the costume itself. So it's impossible to talk about Lakalaka without mentioning the late Queen Salote Tuvo III, who herself was a master composer of poetry. Now, during the 19th century, she heavily emphasized the preservation of the arts among her people, to the point where she assigned Punake's choreographers to teach people outside of their villages. And prior to that, each Punake would remain loyal to their village and dare not go outside that community to teach others. But because they were assigned by the Queen, it became an obligation and a responsibility for them. So many of the dances that we enjoy today is because of Queen Salote's influence. Let's move on to the dance costumes. Dancers from many villages wear a distinctive signature clothing during performance, which conveys additional messages. For example, the performers from the village of Kanokupolu, shown here, they wear large wraparound skirts of bark cloth or ngatu, made in a specific size called folaosi, which honors the women of the village who are considered some of the best bark cloth makers in the kingdom. Next, we have the dancers from Kolofo'o. Their Lakalaka is called the Laione. And Kolofo'o is near Nuku'alofa, which is the capital. And they have been wearing red and white striped manafau or waistband made of fau bark fiber skirts for at least 35 years. We'll go on to the next one. This is the Lakalaka No'oanga of Navutoka. In other words, the ancient shark catching technique of Navutoka emphasizes their ritual occupation. The costume that you see here was taken in 1993. Today, instead of the white manafau or fiber skirt around the waistband, it has changed to using tea leaves instead. Our next Lakalaka is the Wasila'a Lakalaka of New Toa, or what they call the sundial Lakalaka, that depicts a V shape from an incising at the top of the ha'amonga, which is a stone trilithon in the village of New Toa that is associated with the equinox. Their attire is white clothing with bark cloth wrapped around the waist. And then they have the same anklet and wristlet, which is usually maile, made out of maile. Now let's take a look at the anatomy of the Lakalaka costume here. We have the tekteki. The women wears the standing teki, whereas in the men, their tekteki is flat, made out of feather. We have the clothing would be dress or blouse with long skirt. We have the manafau on the ta'avala. For both of these pictures are different Lakalakas. And always there's the anklet and the wristlet that goes with it. And we can't forget the kahoa, the necklace. Around your waist would be a sisi losi. For the picture on the right, very much different from the picture on the left, which they wear the fau bark fiber around the waist. And then the men wear the white shirt and also the tupenu. It can either be black or white for the tupenu. Some people have matching clothing, and others it's white shirt and then black tupenu, or it can be white tupenu too. So we'll move on. The milolua, Lakalaka, is based on the mixing of kava for the tu'ikanokupolu, which has been the duty of the people of Kolovai for generations. Their dance attire consists of white blouse or shirt, black skirt, lokeha, which is a mat worn around the waist, and then the overskirt of the tea leaves over the mat. White dekdeki feather, and then maile anklet and wristlet. Next, we have the Lomipeau of La Paha or Tatakamotonga. Their signature costume is always black in commemoration of the great Chief Tupuaho, originator of Lakalaka. We have the Ma'ulu'ulu coming up. And this is called the sitting dance. According to Tongan tradition, the Ma'ulu'ulu is said to have come from Samoa in the end of the 1800s. Ma'ulu'ulu is the name of a Samoan dance type. And some of the people, some of the old people remember tropes of Samoan dancers who performed this dance in Tonga. And this was said to have stimulated the creation of a new dance type. Ma'ulu'ulu is a large group dance performed sitting in graduated tiers. The Ma'ulu'ulu dance attire is very similar to that of the Lakalaka. We'll move on to the ta'olunga. The Tongan ta'olunga is said to have been adopted into Tongan culture from the Samoan ta'olunga. Though many of the movement or motives used in the ta'olunga come from ancient ula dance. The ula, also known as fa'ahi ula, was a group dance for young chiefly daughters. With the introduction of the Samoan ta'olunga in the 19th century, it became institutionalized amongst Tonga's aristocracy, and soon became one of the most popular dances to end an occasion. In the 1950s, Queen Salote personally made ta'olunga distinctively more Tongan by adding wrist flourishes and Lakalaka leg transitions into her song, Manu o Palataisi. Translated, it means the bird of paradise. And this led to what we see composition and format of the modern ta'olunga today. Historically, the ta'olunga attire consisted of natural resources that was native to the island of Tonga, such as flowers and plants. The ngatu costume or bark cloth is one that is ancient with variations in kupesi designs. The teunga kakala pictured here, top, front and center, originated from La Paha, made out of fa or Pandanus tectorius, its proper name. Her sisi or waistband is made out of leaves. Usually it's maile if available, with added fa. The fa skin is cut to a thin layer and then sewn onto a certain design or kakala, and again is sewn onto the black bark cloth that you see here. Her wristlet and anklet would be the maile and fa as well, as with dekdeki. The teunga kakala is widely used throughout Tonga, especially for competitions and large events. Another popular costume is the whakalala, which is the black bark cloth or ngatu cut into symmetrical design and sewn onto a mat called the kia tonga. Today, modern day Tonga modern day Ta'olunga attire has no limit or restrictions and are more elaborate and creative, especially with various resources available outside of Tonga. Move on to the next. So here you can see the Te Unga Kakala is changed up. We have the fetaaki or the white ngatu, and then we have the rest of the kakala sewn onto the bark cloth here. And then the anatomy of the Ta'olunga costume. Kahoa, it can be optional, it depends. We have the kauri shell, puleoto, the standing tekteki, the siskakala around the waist. We have the wristlet and the anklet. And the te unga kakala is a two-piece, which consists of the top part and the bottom. And that leads to now my husband to do the rest of his presentation.
Malay, Talofa, welcome. Just to continue, I'd like to thank my wife for her time to speak. Those are most all of the costumes. Mostly the women has all kind of costumes that relate to our Tongan culture. But let me just wrap up some few dances. Dance in Tonga was, and in many ways still, is an important function aspect of our Tongan culture. Dance was performed on formal occasions to show allegiance to the chiefs, to commemorate life crises such as funerals or puberty rites of the chiefs, and to entertain visiting dignitaries, or even for harvest festivals. And if you can see on the picture here, Metu Paki is one of the ancient dance that has come from to us relatively unchanged. They did it back in the olden days, and they're still the same up to today. If you see in the picture, that's me back in 1997, back in Tonga, in commemoration of our 50th anniversary of our school, Tonga High School. The two pictures on top and to your left, and to the right, that's all the old men from Lakalaka, which the Metu Paki is originated from. As it stands, Me'e, dance, Tu'u, standing, and Paki, battle, or dancing, dance standing with battles. The Metu Paki is divided into several sections or stanzas, which is repeated at least once, twice, more times, and it is ends with a shout. Do. Every single verse ends with a do, and it comes with relatively something like this, the pate. They call it pate. And if you can see the picture, this young, the teki teki, always either be to your left or to your right. They also a kahoa, which is optional, but this one they have the papai fa. They also have the ngatu. As you can see, it's all the way up under the arm or on top of your chest, all the way down to your ankle. The sisi. Okay, the ngatu is tied on with a kafa before the sisi. The sisi can be a sisi kakala, as you can see, the tea leaves, or they put different varieties of flowers into it, adding to it. The pate metu paki, he's holding on your the right hand, and also they have the wrist. C. It either can be C, fulu more, or whatever is available. But that's just an example totally of the costume that you will always see at the Metu Paki. And then at the time of Captain Cook's visit to Tonga, the Metu Paki was the formal dance that was a type of dance that was performed. The language was poetic and elusive, and it was also performed gracefully. That's the only dance that the men are doing. It's more like graceful and so on to point when they dance. You don't see them like the Mako move around so much. They're just more like standing and be graceful and also to, it's more like a loyal dance per se. And then we'll move on to Mako. This is one of the most common dance nowadays. The Mako is a fast-paced dance which is performed by young men, accompanied by an extremely fast rhythm on a drum, tin can, or music. Dancers perform with wild gestures involving their entire bodies and point in various directions. Is how they run, sit, roll, or lie down repeatedly and in quick succession. Mako is a modern and popular dance that equates the warmth or the mafana of the performing. We move on to the costume. So, like once again, you have the teki teki. You have the kahoa, it optional, whatever is available, and they have the vesa fulu more on top on your wrist or your ankle. They also have the top, the sotehina, the white shirt. Is either that white shirt, tank top, or shirtless. A lot of people from olden days didn't require, they didn't have shirts, so yeah, the shirtless was performed with back then. Again, ngatu, it's optional too. Ngatu or whakahapai, manafau, or even a lot of, sometimes you can wear tupenu, the skirt in front, between before the whakahapai. Yeah, like I said, this is just an example of the costume, and nowadays it's optional depending on who is making the costume for the faiva. We'll move on to the kailau. The kailau is a war dance. You can see the picture. This dance is originally from the island of Ubea, Futuna, Wallis, around that neighborhood. And now it becomes a Tongan dance. Kailau is only performed by men with stylish short spears, the pate kailau, they call it. There is no singing or chanting, only the movement of the spears and the feet to the tempo of a beating slit drum, tin can, or the music. You can see the costume for the kailau is a little bit different as it's shown in the picture. Some of them are shirtless, some of them is tank top, some of them is with the shirt. But if you look at the one to the right bottom corner, they have the hat or the helmet. That is part of the full costume for the Kailao. They're going to war, and you must have a helmet to protect you. It's more like a full costume for war. They have the girdles of leaves, the sisi around sisi manafau around your waist, and also the vesa. They have the teki also, the headpiece for protection. And sometimes they have the ngatu, the sheet of ngatu around you, or you can see the pictures, it's just shorts, whatever is comfortable, because you're moving around a lot on the kailao. So, and you have to be very fit to be able to perform this kind of a dance. And then we'll move on to the soke. The soke. Oh, by the way, sorry. With the kailao, I have here some pate kailao. It's either they decorate it, or it comes plain, and you can do whatever you want with it. But this is just a symbol. I have it with me, but if you want to learn kailao, hit me up. The soke. Soke, it back then was called eke. It's a Tongan group dance. This is originally from Futuna also. Soke is performed with sticks, which the performers hit against each other to the beat of a drum, tin box, or music. So the soke consists of what they call vaka, or a boat. For a single vaka, they had to have 4 people, 2 men, 2 women. So the men are use the long stick. They use the long stick. If you see the pictures, they use the long stick, and the women or the ladies use the 2. So, in order to complete a boat or vaka, it has to consist of 4 people. They usually slide or exchange or heke repeatedly according to the music or the drums. It is so, back then in Futuna, the soke was originated from the Catholic Church, and they brought it to Tonga during back then, and it's one of my village. My village is the only village back home that performed the soke. Every time we have a big ceremony or functions to the king, to the palace, Maufanga always perform soke. The costume for it, very similar to all the other dances, except for the kahoa. Except for the sticks. The sticks makes a big difference to the dances. Going back to, and some of the rest, kahoa, the vesa, I forgot to mention it. But to the kailao, a lot of them uses on the ankles, right? If you can see to the left corner, to the bottom, they use what you call the vesa paanga, the ankle rest. They call it vesa paanga. It's so loud when they when stumping your feet, and it makes it's also give you the malie or the mafana of the performance. something that it came, if you, my wife was mentioning earlier on about the teki teki. If you notice it, the women always wears the long stick, the teki teki long, with long stems, and then the men, it's laying flat. The idea behind it, from my understanding, is the stem will, you know, how the women's hair is long, it can go down and they can hold it, and since their teki is so gracefully, a lot of people notice it from far away. If you teki it too hard or too fefeka, it will come off. The flat ones for the boys, the flat teki teki for the boys, they made it flat. So because since we are so rough how we dance, we tied it to our hair, and when we teki, even though it's flat, but it will move around when you teki. So there's a difference between the women is so gracefully, the man is not so. They want to empower while they're dancing. And last but not least, I want to bring this up to various words that describes, with all these costumes, right? With all this costume that the Tongans have, they have various words that describe us Tongans while we dance. So they have, but I want to pick up this word, malie. Malie, it's pleasant, enjoyable, admirable. It's only something that's malie, however, that would draw the feeling of the mafana. Mafana means, you know, when you watch the Tongan dance, a lot of people like shouting, screaming. They call that mafana. Sometimes not so much. You gotta feel how you dance. The mafana, it's for the performers, is how well you know, how well you prepare for the occasion, how the skill and feelings of the performer, the inner state of the spectator, and the craftsmanship in composition. So it's not only for the Punake, it has to feel by the whole group that's performing. That's how the mafana comes out of. It's not just, you can't just come and 2 days of practice and you call it mafana. A lot of people misunderstand that. A lot of people, when they come to perform a Tongan dance, and they don't know or they don't remember what's coming next when they perform, and they scream and yell and do other stuff. I don't think that's mafana. A mafana comes from your heart, that you're proud of yourself. You're proud of the whole group preparing for so long. You can't wait to the right, and can't wait to the right moment to celebrate with each other. With all the costumes that my wife, Nia, and I was talking about, we are honored to be part of this program. We are so grateful to be able to help, to be able to present our cultures wherever we go. If we can learn from it, with the questions, and we can try to answer it to the best of our ability. If we can also learn from you guys today. So I want to turn all the time to Ryan to see, but again, thank you.
Thank you for sharing just so much of your culture with us, especially just the fact that I just want to emphasize too that we hold Tonga Day because there's a significant amount of Pacific Islander students, not only in our county. There's more, it's true, there's more at our sister college, CSM, but we have a significant amount on campus. And when we took the data out of our Pacific Islander, the fraction of our students that identifies Pacific Islander, it was 75% of those Pacific Islander students put onto the data that they were Tongan. And so the ASSC and our office, Center for Student Life, we recognize how important it is to offer cultural programming that honors the heritage of our students. And Tonga Day last year was thought up and brought about from the heart of one of our officers in collaboration with our office, which is, I want to shout out to her, Kaylin Seta Malani, who is very proud of her Tongan heritage, and she really wanted to see that the ASSC spoke to that. So we'll go ahead, I'll step back and allow folks to just go ahead and ask questions. If there are any questions for Punake and his wife, that would be great if y'all could go ahead and go for it. So we have a question from Alvin. He wrote, when you harvest the materials to make the costumes, is there a prayer or a ritual that you do?
Back then, yes, you have to. There is certain place in Tonga that they know where to get. There's certain villages, there's certain location for all this custom made. You can pray about it. You're praying. Hopefully they can accept you coming and borrowing and asking their permission to be able to harvest the flowers for the teunga. But yes, it is so important back then. Nowadays, it's not so much because we're here in the States. Whatever we have this, we always come up with different ideas, especially Chinese stores. We have our Hawaii. We always get our materials from other islands, but back home, yes, you have to know who you have to ask. You have to get permission.
Thank you for that question, Alvin. I have a question for some of the girls, teki, which is that I know that they will wear them in certain amounts of the, I don't want to just be ignorant, use the word stick, but I really don't know what else to call it. It looks, the ones that stand straight up, I noticed that y'all do like 3. Is there a reason behind the number 3?
Behind the number 3, what do you think
the originally, the number 3, it's modern. You know, it's creative ideas from, but it's only one. It's creative ideas of the people that makes the costume. They want to have 3, and sometimes you have seen more, but originally it's just one. It's modern. It's just upgrading with what we go with nowadays.
I think also another thing is the significance with that is that depending on the design of the teki, you want to be able to hold if it's heavy. You know, if what you're making is really heavy, then you have to have something that can be really solid so that when you do stick the teki in there, it can hold. So yeah, that's another reason why I always try to do like, I always do 3. It's funny, I always do like between 3 and 4, just because I just want to make sure that it doesn't fall off. We do have to pin it on with bobby pins, but you know, just to make sure that it's on properly and that it sticks. So that's another reason why I do it.
Okay, then follow-up question for the boys. One I always wondered, because in our group, I know that, you know, the fulu fului manu teki teki that we use out of feathers, you know, back when I was performing with y'all a lot about 1.5 years ago, the different shows, I used to tell you, Nia, I need you to clip it to my head, right? Because my hair was too short. But back in the day when y'all didn't have like clips or the plastic kind of stretchy material.
Bands.
Yeah, the bands, even I've seen folks use rubber bands before. I mean, our group doesn't do that, but I've seen folks do it and it works. So back in the day, like what were they using? Were they using like kafa, or what was it that they had?
Back in the day, I don't.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Back in the days, I never thought of that. I would think
I don't
I
think
would
they,
think they use like kafa, whatever was necessary to tie your hair. But yeah, available back then, I would say the only thing, kafa or rope, that a short string that can tie it to your hair. Yeah,
maybe
they didn't
even
have.
a piece of cloth
Yeah.
that's, you know, really thin and then tied on and then
Because
wrap it around
I
your head.
remember, I remember growing up, we didn't have rubber bands back then. We usually used the cloth. We cut it from a piece of cloth and then tied it.
Gotta make do.
I got another question. Hi guys.
Hi.
Sorry, just came from lunch. Thank you for coming. I know y'all said like it's not. I guess with time things change, right?
Right. Yeah.
What is still like similar or different to like how it was back then, and like doing the costuming or doing the dance, and what has like changed?
A lot of change, especially in costume. It's especially here in America. We don't have the plants. We don't have the flowers that we have back home. So we got to come up with what we can. And also the way we dance. As a lot of people, that's what's it's drifting away from our culture, is how people dance nowadays. I see people now that we've come up with moments that I have never seen before. I'm not here to say. I'm not going to mention any names but I see a lot of that, especially in the Tongan culture. I see a lot of change. I grew up back home with the Punake, following the footsteps of the Punake, and I try to do my best to stay in that category, especially here in America. It's a big difference. There's certain moments that I don't see that over here, especially in America. Kids comes up, it's either their teacher or them come up with various moments that are like, oh, where did that come from? But yes, it's so true. Yeah, there's a lot of change. Appreciate the question.
We have a fan right next to me.
Hello.
She has her questions.
So actually, I love the slide and everything you guys saying about the Tongan costume. It's really interesting for me because I have a lot of questions. So first off is that what is fa? I don't know what is fa, and also what is the authentic than costume, because you guys saying the costume was changing a lot and a lot. So what is the real one then? Is it topless for the boy and just the tapaklot, or what, you know, and also for the girl? And I saw that there's always the color black and white coming up. Is it mean something? Because as a Polynesian person, color mean a lot of things for us. If you wear red, it means love or death. If you wear purple, for sure it means death for us as a Tahitian person. And I'm pretty sure it means something for you guys too, the color, right? So I think if I keep going with all my questions, I think we're gonna be ending at 4 a.m. p.m. So I'll just stop there.
Yeah, so with color, like the Hilala costume that I showed on there. So fa is called, what is it called? We call it fa in Tongan, but I said it was called pandanus. It's from the pandanus tree.
Oh.
Yes. So it's they also have another name. It's called what is it? Pine screw. So it's like this huge kind of seed, and when it's ripe, you pick it out. So it's like a
Pandanus fruit.
yes.
Correct? It's like yellow and red.
Yes. Yes.
Oh.
And so we slice that the skin of the pandanus fruit and make it into those kakala designs. And so you sew that on, and then when you have a bunch of those, you sew it onto the black. Now I think because the Teunga Kakala is from La Paha, their signature Lakalaka clothing is black, which commemorates their chief, Tukuaho. So I think that has something that's related to that.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay, the topless. A lot of people back then. I mean, who knows? Maybe because they were wearing topless because we didn't have clothes back then.
Yeah.
Right.
And now you see more of people wearing tank top and shirts. And for me personally, I think it's more like to show respect and modest. But yeah, I would think back then it's just we didn't just have and back then they were so muscular back then, and who cares about the shirt?
And also the color. So what it black and white mean for you guys then? Is it death, happiness? You know?
Black. Black is of course it's
Color of death.
color of death for us, and then white is color of happiness.
Oh.
Here we see the vice versa. White is death, and black. You know, it's all depends now where you at. But yeah, in Tonga, black, you rarely see a funeral that
Where's white?
white.
Yes.
Yeah, that's not Tongan.
But now it's, you know, the modern days.
It's not Tongan. So
The modern days it's
yeah. So again, there's a lot of cultural diffusion where we adopt from other people. So for an example, like we see that the Samoans wear white during funerals, whereas in Tonga we never did that. So I think it's just, you know, preference and what other people and what, you know, what family wants, you know. So they'll say, oh, okay, let's have all the kids wear white, but that's not tradition.
Wow.
So yeah.
We have a question from, and I want to special welcome to Professor Wesley Hingano from CSM from Mana. Thank you so much for being here, Professor.
Thank you guys for having this. I have a quick question. So I heard a kumuhula once say that the tradition of hula or Pacific Islander dancing is not doing the same dance over and over again, but is having the artistic creativity. And I know we're talking about being modern. And so the work that I do in my research is regarding like the identity of Pacifica Oceania students, and knowing that they have a strong transnational identity, like even though they live here, they have strong connections home, but also knowing that they have a bicultural identity, right? So a lot of my work is centered here in Oakland, knowing that the Tongans here in Oakland, like my boys describe it, they say that they're hella Tongan, but they're also hella Oakland. The work that we do at my church, in terms of teaching dances, is giving them voice, and letting them put that Oakland flavor in whatever dance we're doing. And so I think my question is, what is the role of the Punake? Is it to sustain the culture, but is there room to be innovative, and is there room to be modern with that?
The role of, let's talk about me growing up. The main role of a Punake is sustain and preserve the culture as much as he can, right? That's back then. That's back home. Coming here to the States, being modern, I'm all in for it. You know, I'm just saying that the difference between the olden days and the modern days, but looking back at it now, the struggle of the Punake from home, and you probably know it, Wesley, Professor, that sometimes they can't relate or understand the kids growing up here. So we have to adapt, and we have to go with what we have. I know from firsthand some of the Punakes here that I work with, and I witness it, that it's so hard for them to understand and just convey the message to the kids.
Or this generation.
Especially in this generation. And a lot of times they give up. They you know, but I think with the modern, I don't see a problem. Why not? Go for it. Because we are all here, and mostly these generations, we are all kids. We're still young, and we see what we see on YouTube, when we learn what we learn from the Punake per se. But it's up to us to figure it out. And I'm proud, and I thank you for the work that you do, Professor. I maybe one day I'll come in and visit you guys in Oakland, so we can do something, you know.
And then Professor, and Punake, if I can just say something for that, I'd say that I so appreciate the work you do, Wesley, with those young men, especially that you work with in the community, because I think that as they're Tongan American, they have to express themselves how they feel, how much Tongan they feel, how much connected they feel. So if I look at our Punake son, he's a great dancer. If I picture in another 10 years, if he went and did his own thing, I think as a Pacifica or a Tongan American, he could innovate and take what his dad taught and change it. But I think it's I feel it's disrespectful if I do that as an outsider, a person who no Polynesian Pacific bloodline, doesn't matter if I married in or lived there. I think that as an outsider, if I'm a disciple or a student, say to Punake or even of you, that I think the most respectful thing I could do is just learn it and preserve it the way I was told as an outsider. And I think that gets sticky sometimes, right? Because then you have folks who are not full Polynesian or full anything anymore, right? But then the lines get blurred of when is it okay to change the traditions, and when is it okay, or when is it not okay? But then I always tell people, like, you know, if you're an outsider like me, you should never be trying to change things up without them knowing about it, or just I would feel so ashamed if a non if I did that. I'd feel ashamed to make Kuata feel like that, like, oh, I taught him all that stuff and then he just changes it up and puts his TikTok moves in, you know, or something like that. I don't do TikTok moves, but I can imagine it would seem not right. So I kind of want to almost put that on record. Like, I hope the other outsiders to the Pacific cultures who love and respect the cultures, like, I hope that we are listening to you folks. And when you folks tell us it's okay for this dance to change it this way, because this is how I envision it, then we would follow. But I think that it's not okay when we just come up with it on our own. Like, I'm gonna fuse it with techno, or I don't know, whatever kind of crazy thing you could think of. I don't know. That's me. Trying to be as respectful as possible.
Just to add on to that, Ryan, it is true. You know, if we go to functions and you see a lot of dancers, a lot of group that dance like mixing. If you can't do it right, stick to what you're dancing. Stick to what your culture is doing. A lot of people are doing mixing Hawaiian, Samoan, Tongan, Fijian, and to be honest, it's a disgrace to that culture if you're not doing it right. If we and I think it's just because of we are all they're all kids that they're doing it, but I would think that sticking to what you do best. If you do Tongan, stick to Tongans. If you do Samoan, stick to Samoan. But if you want to do, if you're a Tongan that want to do Samoans, do it to the best of your ability. Do it to be better than Samoans. Do it to be better than the Fijian. That's always my goal. I dance Fijian, I try to be like the Fijians. I dance Samoans, I try to be like the Samoans, which is make me be proud of what I do. If I can't do it, I'm not doing it at all. So, yeah, appreciate the time and effort to tune in.
I turn the question back on you, Professor. I am curious your ideas on that. I mean, if you did have, say, a young person who's not of Polynesian descent, changing up things in your culture, you know, not what is your criticism to them, but maybe like what's instead your advice? Because we see it a lot happening, right? We see it with I won't name like what I'm seeing, but there's some folks who do Tahitian or hula, and they're mixing it with modern music, but they're not people from the Pacific who are making these changes. Like, what is your words to them?
Yeah, I'm a big critique of this, just because I also feel some type of way about it. But for me, I think we ourselves as Indigenous people, as Tongans, we also have to be rooted ourselves in tradition. And so I think it's really important to first learn the traditional way and be rooted in that way before you branch off. And I think people do it correctly like that. I feel like that's the most correct way, is kind of learning the traditional way. And then they can be an artistic themselves and branch off, right? In their own artistic feel. But I do see a lot of it, of people kind of just skipping that part, and then they go to the mixing part and doing everything else. But you can really tell that their technique is off. They don't know how to taulalo. They don't know how to whaarapu. Like, there's different things, but they kind of skip step one in those baby steps, and they try to go running, right?
Right.
So there's real ways that people have done it, and I feel like you're talking about like the Tahitian community where I see a present. You can tell the groups that is rooted in traditional dancing and rooted in getting you know, information from their elders and so forth. And then there's other groups that's kind of like rooted in YouTube or like rooted in just their own ways. So I think like just really coming back to our elders, coming back to the basics, learning the basics before even branching off. And I feel like we can always tell those that kind of just skip those steps and kind of just move forward. But yeah, that's what I would say.
That's so interesting, Professor, that you say that, because from the beginning, when we had kids, we have 6 kids, so we have 5 girls and we only have 1 son. So early on, we knew that we had to teach them our traditions, and our kids grew up learning Tongan first. We thought to ourselves that because we live here in the States, we live away from home, that we needed to preserve our own culture by teaching them dance first, teaching them about our traditions and staying rooted. So by the time they grew up, they were kind of pretty tired of like traditional stuff, but they're in high school now, so they're saying like, oh, I get why they do this, and you know, I understand why they say that, and why I have to say tulo or excuse me in front of people, because I just didn't want them to leave home without being taught. Wesley, you know how that goes. So to us, staying rooted and teaching them of our traditions at home has stuck with us. So now that, you know, they're away from us, or they're able to understand why we do these things, and they can branch off, you know, because they can be Tongan, they can be a little bit hood. So yeah, so I totally understand where you're coming from, but as long as they know where they come from, and always keep that in mind. So yes.
And I'm just thankful that you brought up that first question at all, because this is what I think, this is what the identity of our event Tonga Day should be, is to give a platform for folks in the Skyline community, CSM included, but really Skyline because we don't have mana, as a way for our Polynesian or Pacifica students on campus to connect with folks like Kuata, connect hopefully, you know, with folks like you and Fee, and even our office, to get these conversations started too, right? Because I was talking with Kuata about it, like we do Tonga Day, but we were both saying, like, he was telling me in Tonga itself, this is kind of like it's not like a huge, right? It's not a huge holiday back home. It's really the overseas Tongan diaspora in Australia, New Zealand, and USA who have made it like a big holiday as a way to celebrate, I guess, the Tongan culture and heritage. So, you know, these are good conversations because they're directly relevant to our students, and they're relevant to our campus community as well. So thank you so much. I don't know if there's any other questions, but if not, we're gonna go ahead and say thank you so much to Punake Kuata Vainikolo, and also Nia Vimahi Vainikolo, directors of KPA. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you to the students for hosting this event. Thank you to Alvin for helping to engineer and support our Tongan students on campus and engineering and supporting this event. And thank you to Professor Hingano for being here and representing CSM Mana. I know we caught y'all on an off day where there's no class. Next year we'll have to keep planning it out so we can do something co-campus. But thank you all.
Thank you.
I appreciate it, Malo.
Yes, we will repost the link. Thank you so much.